Hey guys, this is NPC Not doing another draft rating for Raw this time. And I'm still here again with guest Mordicant. And we're just going to go over the cards. Commons to Legendary, and we're going to give you our ratings on them. So let's get right into it. Our first card is Canopic Jar. How do you feel about
Uh,
a 3-mana card that doesn't do much?
it sounds like backstab to me. In arena anyway. In constructed, there's applications. There was a whole Canopic Jar meta for a while, but in arena, yeah, I don't think this is something you want to be playing around with too much. Um, it's easy to get traded out. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage over the course of the game, probably. And if it does, because you're the only way it stays alive is if you have board control, and if you have board control in this game, then you're winning anyway. So don't really need it. Probably give it like a half a point,
Yeah, I mean,
1 point.
it's not 100% useless. You could, like, draft it if there's nothing better, and you're sitting there looking at, like,
Hive
Hive
and
and something
Calder.
terrible.
I'd probably take
Take
Calder
the
or
Calder.
Canopic Jar.
Um, if you can get 2 or 3 heals off a turn, because put a pretty serious clock in. That being said, I don't think this card's even worth a point, so I'm with you.
It's really hard to get like 3 heals multiple turns in a row.
Cataclysm. I mean, like, this card is just worse than like all the other stun cards basically that are in the game. That being said, stun cards are pretty broken anyway. If you ever get 2 guys stunned with this and can attack for it, it's kind of nuts. That being said, the area is small. It's not like a column or like a row where you see those other cards that are a lot better.
Yeah, and also it's one of the stun cards that doesn't cycle. And it gets especially outclassed by Fist of the Gods from the same Pantheon. So I probably wouldn't draft it. If I'm looking for a stun effect, I'm gonna try and grab the Fist of the Gods.
Yeah,
Probably give it like a 1.5.
yeah, I agree with
When
you.
it's good, it's really good, but like a lot of the time, it's
Not that
only
good.
okay. Yeah, maybe a 2.
Execute. I think this card is the super real deal. It's probably the best common in Raw if I think about it. I'm gonna give this card a 5. 5 mana, just kill a guy. When you need it, you need it, and when you see it, you need to draft it.
Sounds good. Hard removal is hard to come by in this game,
Mm-hmm.
so now giving that a 5.
Yeah.
Fist of the Gods. Here's the card.
This card's
This
kind of
card's real good.
crazy, right? It stuns a guy, so you get a really good trade. It's not even a trade that way. You really just kill their guy, and then you draw a card. It's also 1 mana, so it really fits into a lot of curves nicely. It smooths them out in a really solid way while replacing itself. So you get a free kill on a guy, you get a draw card, and you get to smooth your curve all in one. I don't think it's quite as good as Execute, but it's close. And
It's
that
gotta
being
be like a
said,
4.
it's probably a 4, yeah.
Just
Maybe
something to
not.
keep in mind is
There's a lot of good commons in Raw. I'm not sure if I would take this over. Was her name Neat?
Neath.
Yeah, Neath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't. I want to give Neath like a 4.5 though.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, okay. So we'll say 3.5 for Fist of the Gods. Just one thing to keep in mind is don't go too heavy on the spells because then you won't have the creatures to enable the trades with your Fist of the Gods.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't. I don't want to draft more than like probably 8 spells in an arena deck.
I mean, Calamity's
That's like
broken. This is like mini Calamity, basically, guys, at a much
yeah.
easier cost to cast.
Mhm.
Kepri.
Super good.
Yeah, I mean, this card is also another stellar guy, and that's the problem with this class. It has so many good commons in it, really. The problem is like this card's insane against Odin, which is what you're gonna be playing against most of the time. So that it increases his value greatly. When you're not playing against Odin, this card is actually not that good. But when you are playing against Odin, he's just nuts.
If you manage to combo him with like any of the other healing cards though, like Sobek or Thoth, then he gets
Yeah,
real just off the chart very quickly.
yeah, I agree. That being said, I'm only gonna give him a
Or
3.
Sacred Warrior.
He's pretty situational. You have to have the rest of the good cards to go with him, which some of them are other commons that you'd probably be taking over him to start with, and then on top of that, you have to like count on like legendary, well, not legendaries, but epics like Thoth to make him broken.
Yeah, I mean Sobek and Sacred Warrior and
Yeah,
Neath.
but they're all commons, right? Like, so are you
Yeah, they're
taking
all
them or
commons, but
this?
they work with the Kepri, which means you're probably going
So
to be seeing them.
yeah.
Moving on.
Last breath. This is like kill 2 guys against Bologna basically,
Very
which
strong.
is
Yeah.
insane. In the matchups where you're playing against Odin, for instance, this card's not that good because they're gonna have a lot of tokens, right? But in the matchups where their creatures are really high value, you're looking at like against Ra, you're also looking against Bologna. This card is very powerful. You're going to get more than 4 mana's worth of guys killed almost every time. You can most of the time set it up so that their best creatures are the ones that are going to be murdered at pretty little cost to you. There is like a waiting clause because it's poison and that's how it works. And in Arena, you do see more self.
I think your mic just cut out. Best time for the headphone to die. And we're back. Okay.
Sorry about that, but you do see more self silence cards being played in Arena, which means that they could poison their own guy. Stuff like Anguish is better in Arena. Silence is pretty good in Arena. But that being said, most of the time this is going to just straight out kill 2 valuable creatures.
Oh, you think like a 3?
Yeah, I think it's a 3, a pretty solid 3. Worse than Execute because you go to target it and it just happens immediately, but better than.
And just because there's so much Odin.
Yeah, and there's just so many good cards in Ra that are commons that you need to take over this. Magma Slam. Like in any other class, right? This is like a pretty high value.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
just a good removal spell. Again,
yeah.
Like a 3. Again, one thing I can't stress enough is these spells are all really good, but they're also a lot of them are interchangeable, and you don't need that many. You don't want more than 1 in your opening hand. You don't want to have more than 2 in your hand at any time, because if you do get initiative on the board and you do get to like have the board control the board and like keep being on the board, you want to keep up your pressure. You want to have creatures to play. You don't want to just be sitting there with 3 or 4 removal spells in hand waiting for your opponent to do things so you can remove them. It's not how you win the game. You win by like putting pressure on and then removing your opponent's creatures that they try to stop your pressure with. So again, it's very important. Don't draft too many spells. These are all really good, but they're also interchangeable. Don't take too many of them.
Yeah, guys. The biggest problem with Magma Slam is that what happens is like you're reacting with this card, you're not being proactive. So your opponent plays their 3-drop, right, and you slam it. Great. Now they have initiative on the board again to play their next card, and you're out of mana. You want to be using these spells later in the game when you can play multiple spells. So you really don't want too many of them bogging in your hand in the early game where you're not getting board presence.
Yeah, it's important to have early creatures.
I mean, I think this is
and just to have creatures
a solid
in general.
3 again, though.
Yeah, I think it's a 3 for sure.
Meditation. I think this card's pretty garbage, guys. Healing a bunch of guys can be great if you have like Sobek in play, but that also requires you to have a bunch of guys injured while you have Sobek in play. The area of which it heals isn't even that big. Like a 3x3 is not terrible, but
you can hit a lot with 3x3. 3x3 is pretty big.
It's not really that great. Most of the time when they're trading with you, like they're actually killing your guy with their guy. Like injuries don't happen that much unless you force them. So where you're going to be healing like 2 to 3 guys with this is pretty uncommon, really.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I think it's like a 1.
Sure. I was gonna say like 1.5, but 1's fine.
Neath. This
Neath's
card
really
is
good.
insane, guys. Right? Like we've all played with Stone Guardian, right? Where he gets like range over turns. This card just starts with that, basically. At the cost of 2 mana every turn, start wrecking your opponent, killing all of their guys from across the way. I'm happy to pay that cost. She's actually huge. She's a 4/4 range for 5, with an insanely good ability. Right? You can even just use her just to attack guys like from 3 squares away. 4/4 range is pretty reasonable for 5 mana. When you can start using it to snipe out high important targets that are hiding, it becomes wonderful.
Also, she kills other ranged units without getting attacked back.
Yeah.
And that's an ability that there isn't a lot of in this game, and it's very valuable. So I want to give Neath like a 4.5.
Yeah, I think maybe Execute's like the only card that's really better than her. And even then, that's
I'm not even convinced. Yeah, I might take Neath over Execute.
Pharaoh's Elf, who cares? This
don't draft
0.
it.
Recruiter, spawn a random unit from your opponent's deck under your control. Now, every time this card is played against me, it pulls important legendary X. That being said, it shouldn't, so I don't like this card.
I still think it's fine. I think Recruiter, I think on average, you're going to get a 4-drop or better.
I think that's probably pretty accurate. I mean, most of the time you're drafting more 3 and 4s than anything else in the game, so on average you pull a 3 or a 4. It helps you a little bit in the battles, but I want to be choosing my.
You're more likely to gain mana than you are to lose mana on this card.
I don't know if that's true.
I think so. I think you're more likely to get a 5-drop than a maybe not than a
Not a
3-drop,
3-drop
but
now.
I think you're more likely to get a 5, 6, 7-drop than a 3-drop or a
Oh yeah,
2-drop.
I mean you could get like very lucky with this card, but like I said, I like to be able to choose my 4-drops. There's so many good 4-drops in this game already as it is that most of the time I want to just be able to pick the one so I have consistency. This card's very inconsistent.
Yeah, consistency is really good, but so probably like a 2.5. If you can pick like a solid 4-drop creature over it, do it. But
Yeah,
I
this
don't
card's
hate
not
taking.
terrible. This card's fine.
Yeah.
Sacrifice, kill a friendly unit and deal damage equal to its health to an enemy unit. This is like 2-for-1 in yourself every time, right, guys? You play this
Yeah,
card, kill
not
your
great.
guy, kill their guy. Um,
Hopefully.
Better than Blood Bond now, but beyond that, this card's not very good.
Well, maybe better than Blood Bond. With Blood Bond, like a 1/1 can trade into a 7/7. With
It's true,
Sacrifice, like
but this is
you
2
need to be
mana.
trading your Geb.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
I wouldn't draft
know.
this card. If
Like
you
a 1.
really, really need the removal guys, because you managed to draft none of them, you might take this towards the end of the draft. You're like on your 24th card, and you're like, oh god, I have nothing to remove anything. This might be the
Sure.
card you have to choose, but it's not good. I'll give it a 1.
Circuit's good.
Circuit's good. Worse against Odin in the token decks, much better against the decks where their creatures are very high valuable. So this card's great if you're seeing a Labuona. This card's great if you're seeing, a lot of those more powerful cards and creatures for reasonable costs. Can often 2-for-1 your opponent. She's good.
Trade into their 3-drop, poison their 4-drop.
I'd say 3.5
I'd give
probably.
her like, yeah, 3.5 is good. I'd draft her over Magma Slam and probably over Last Breath.
Sobek.
Can be very solid. If you draw him in the mid game, he's okay because you can like usually get an instant heal off and like get him up to a 2/4 and then heal him again to a 3/5 the next turn. Sometimes to a 4/6. If you get him in the early game, he's good because he has 3 health and doesn't die to a lot of your opponent's 2-drops, so you can generally get a heal off that way. Just by having him in your backline, your opponent doesn't want to run dudes in and hit your core because then you can buff your Sobek. He's really good against Odin because he eats their tokens and gets bigger. Very solid in arena. Probably a 3.5, maybe a 4.
Yeah, I mean the biggest problem with Sobek is that you have to have him and other creatures surviving damage or your core damage before you start getting value from him. That being said, he's like the best 2-drop that you can kind of hope for in this deck.
Yeah.
So he's high value. He's great when he works. When he doesn't, he feels very underwhelming. So I think probably 3.5. I would draft a lot of cards over him. But that being said, he is one of your better 2-drops. So if you don't have much on the low curve, pick him. Sunder. This is just a 2 damage for 1 mana. This card kind of is one of the cards where, unfortunately, it often doesn't do enough damage to kill the creatures you need to kill. That being said, at 1 mana, it's not too bad for 2 damage.
2.5.
Yeah, I mean, it's removal on some guys when you need it. It's not a great card. I don't want to see too many of this in my deck for sure.
A lot of the time, you're losing card value, card advantage because of this card. You're usually going to have to like trade a smaller dude into a bigger dude and finish it off with a Sunder. So you're essentially 2-for-1 yourself.
Well, I mean, the thing about Ra is that he has so many range units too that are very powerful. So a lot of times you actually can range them out and then shoot it for 2 more. That
does
being
he?
said, yeah, he does. Anher, Thoth, Neith.
All these legendaries and epics. I mean, not Neith, but like Neith is generally going to be killing things by yourself. I don't know about that argument. I don't want to give it more than a 2.5.
Yeah, I think 2.5 is very, very fair. I think probably around a 2, really. Ward. This card is much better in draft where you just need to draw cards sometimes. I think it's very bad for constructed, but that's not what we're dealing with right now. So 3 mana, draw 2 cards. I'm going to give this card a solid 2. When you need some kind of card engine in your deck and you haven't gotten one at all, this card's alright. I don't want to be playing it on turn 3 ever. I want to be having a creature on turn 3 every time. This is like for your super late game and you're, at like 7, 8 mana and you can play this in something else.
Yeah, it's very bad to just be giving your opponent a free board to play on, especially in the early game. And if you try playing Ward on 3 or even worse, turn 4, then you're really just losing the game for yourself right there.
Mull this card away in your openers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, we're on to the rares. Beset. This card is pretty awesome. Making 3/1/1s is great against the aggro. It's also a 2/2 for 3, which isn't great value. But the fact that you get a bunch of, 1/1s after that, deployed towards wherever the damage was dealt last is nice.
Yeah, I mean it's essentially a 5/5 for 3, broken up into a whole bunch of different creatures and stats, and they can be picked off, by ranged units and by smaller units. But at the end of the day, putting 5 damage on your enemies for 3 mana, like split up however you want, is really good. It's probably a 4.5, maybe a 4.
I wouldn't go that far. At the end of the day, it is a 3-drop that can only do so much, really.
That's a lot.
Yeah, the rares kind of aren't that great, and there, I think a 4 is probably very fair. Book of Thoth. This, like
This
Ward,
card.
unfortunately, takes up an important turn to be played. This card, though, at least gives you some great selection for when you hit it. When this card is at its best, you're getting double Annihilation. When it's like at its worst, you're kind of garbaged out with a bunch of 2 damage to something.
Yeah, I mean something to note is that when it says discover an Egyptian spell and then add a copy of it to your hand, what you're really doing is when you discover it, you're adding a copy to your hand, and then when you're adding a copy, you're getting a second version or a second copy of it. When I first read this card, I thought it was just like pay 5 mana, get a spell, and I was like, this is very, very underwhelming. The wording's a little confusing on it, so
whenever a card says discover,
definitely
that means
note.
you get that card. So when it says you get a copy, you get another copy.
Right. So you get 2 of whatever you pick.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting 2 Annihilations is insane. You can really high roll on this card. Getting like 2 Magma Slams or 2 Executes can be very good. But 5 mana to cast this card means that you need to be like ahead on the board, or at the very least even, and you need to be able to back up to a defensive position where your opponent's not going to be able to play dudes and trade with you the turn you play Book of Thoth, or the turn after you play Book of Thoth. It's a huge tempo loss for basically a whole lot of value if it hits.
Yeah, and when it
So,
doesn't hit, it's terrible.
but yeah, when it doesn't hit, you lost all that tempo basically for nothing. So it's a little bit swingy. I probably drafted it like a 2.5 or a 3.
I think that's too
I'm
generous.
just a little worried about taking this card. Really?
I think like a 2.5 is very fair. This card, like I said, I don't want to be playing my 5-drop as this card ever. If you really need a card generator, take it towards the end
I
of your
mean,
drafts. But I'm not going to.
I'm not gonna play it on 5.
I'm going to take creatures over this card almost every time.
I want to play it on like 9,
Yeah,
8
you
or
want to play
9.
this card
Really,
on 9
really
or
8.
10. You know.
I wanna play it on like 8. Discover a Magma Slam, kill something, trade some of my dudes in, and then
Yeah,
like have it.
but once again, that's just random. Like that's the problem.
Yeah, but it's like not that. I guess there are a lot of bad spells in Raw.
Yeah.
Right? There's like Pharaoh's Health and Sacrifice.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that gets in your way and garbage just to spell up.
Yeah.
Like I said, I would take this card as a 2. If you really, really need the card draw towards the end of a later game, you take this card as like a 2. You take it towards the end of your draft once your deck's already pretty solid, and you can afford that tempo loss. Taking it in the early guys draft is going to be really bad for you. Take your better creatures. Dying Wish. Kill a friendly unit and draw cards equal to its attack. This is another one of those cards that's like not very good, right? But at least it gives you some cards. I've been one to draw 3 or 4 cards off of this spell from before. It's a pretty bad tempo hit because you're losing a creature in play, and then on top of that, you lost all the mana from that card that you played. You lose 1 more mana for playing this.
Yeah, so
But at
bear in
least it does
mind.
cost 1 mana to cast, so it's pretty easy to weave in there. So it's not terrible.
Bear in mind that you are essentially paying 2 cards to draw whatever number of cards you're drawing.
Yeah.
Since you are killing a creature. Best case scenario, you have a big dude, you trade into one of their big dudes, your big dude has 1 health left, you're playing against Odin, they're gonna kill it next turn. You kill it off with Dying Wish and draw 5 cards. That's like the best case scenario.
Yeah.
But that's extremely unlikely.
Well, I mean, even at 4 cards is fine.
Even at 4 cards, that's still unlikely. I don't want to be sitting on the play with my hand looking like Dying Wish, Last Breath, and like Geb.
No, I
You
feel
know,
you. Yeah.
like that's a great way to lose a game. I think having this in your deck, just the fact that you can draw this in your opener, like lowers your percentages to win by a very significant amount. I don't ever want to be drafting this card.
What are you going with, 1 or 2?
I give it like a 1.
Focus Blast. Deal 3 damage to an enemy, then heal a friendly for 3. This card is pretty reasonable removal.
I like this card.
I don't like drafting a lot of this kind of a thing. So once again, drafting too many spells is bad for you. But killing the guy, healing your guy, it can allow you to attack like your bigger unit into a smaller unit, heal that unit and kill their guy. Get an activation off a Thoth, get an activation off a Sobek. It's pretty solid. It's unfortunate it just costs 4 mana.
Yeah, I would like it to cost 3, but it can't cost 3.
No, no.
It would be way too good at 3. Magma Slam costs 3. And this just has heal. Basically, you're getting a Magma Slam, and for 1 mana, you get to heal a dude for 3 life, which is like pretty good. Give it like a 3.
I mean, the thing about this card, guys, is it's like very good against Odin, for instance, right? Where you're like, kill their best guy, gain 3 life to my core.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Geb. The 3/7 Blade Master himself. Before Blade Master got bad.
So he can heal your core when you're, getting down on the life totals. He sticks around. He does a bunch of trading. He blocks. He's very good against the aggro. He can buff your other dudes to keep them around so they can keep doing some more trading. He can buff himself if you really want.
This guy is super efficient, guys. He is
very
basically a 3/10 for 5 mana, which is a huge amount of stats. And you can move that last 3 to whatever you need it to be, and it counts as a heal, so it triggers all of your stuff. As far as rares go, I think he's probably the best rare in Ra. I can't think of a single rare I would take over him.
Like a 4, right?
He's like a 4/5, yeah. He's insane for a rare. Even among neutrals, he's such a high stat line.
Also, keep in mind that he can clear stuns. So if your opponent stuns one of your dudes and doesn't kill it, and they aren't planning on it hitting back, you can buff them, heal them up, get rid of the stun, trade into one of their dudes, keep your guy alive. Very powerful.
I'm gonna give this card a 5 as far as in the rare section goes. I don't think there's a rare better than him in neutral or in Ra. Ritual Tribute. This card is insanely good if you have a bunch of gods. If you've drafted a bunch of gods, guys, this card is great. It makes a 3/5 Sobek, makes a 4/4 Beset, it makes all of your gods great. It brings back, what's her name, Cirquet as well, as a 5/4 and ready to do some more damage. So when you're paying 4 mana, if you've played any of the gods who have died before this point, you're getting back a card that is most of the time more mana efficient than if you were to play another 4-drop. So in that way, it's great. That being said, if you don't have the gods to play this card in your deck, it's terrible. you need to draft some of the early gods. You need to have them to be when you pick this card.
Yeah, I wouldn't draft this early in the draft. I would probably wait to pick it until at least pick 15, or if I have like 6 gods that cost 4 or less already.
Yeah.
Probably something like that. So, did we rate Ritual Tribute?
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna give it like a 3.5. It's such a situational card, but it's like insanely powerful when it's good. Solar Sanctum. This card is just terrible, guys. Don't draft this card. It doesn't really do enough or anything at all most of the time. It's not good. I'm gonna give this card like a 0. It's like Hive bad, I feel. And it's in a rare slot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 3 mana. It's just not something you want to be doing.
Alright, guys, let's move on to the epics. Let's move on to the man himself and her. I think this card is like a 5 in... Oh, man. The only thing that can piece with this card is like Thoth, basically.
Maybe War Behemoth?
Yeah, maybe War Behemoth. I don't know. Shutting down Warcries, guys, is such a powerful thing. There are so many good Warcries in this game. In Arena, it's a little worse. Alright, I'll give him a 4.5, but with the caveat that he's pretty insane.
That's what 4.5 means, right? What do you mean? What caveat?
Keep in mind, once he comes into play, a lot of the effects that would stop him from doing his thing are Warcries. So if you're able to land him, it can be very difficult for your opponent to even get a lot of value. Like if you coin into him and your opponent hasn't played their Scotty yet, they don't get a Calder at all or anything from it even.
They can't use their Chaos Spawns.
Yep.
I'm not going to start listing all the Warcries in the game because the number is just insane. And her just shuts down a lot of stuff.
Appeasement, kill a friendly unit, and reduce the cost of your cards in hand by 2. Unfortunately, this card just isn't very good, guys. I'm going to give it a very low rating. The funniest thing I could think of would be like something like where your opponent kills your Beset, you kill one of your cats, and then start
And
slamming
then
gigantic spells. But this means you have to build your deck in some kind of way that I'm not building my deck in. So I think this
so
card's
wait,
bad.
what do you go like coin Bastet on your first turn, right? Turn 2 you play appeasement, reduce things by 2. Your turn 3 you can start playing 6 drops. What's the craziest thing you can do there? Anubis?
Turn 3, you're playing 5 drops. You already put your coin.
Well, turn 3 you have 4 mana because this is not Hearthstone.
Well, yeah.
So the craziest thing is you can do is like play Bastet on the coin, get it killed, appeasement a cat, and then play like
Mannequin Warrior, and then try the rest of your cats and draw 3 cards.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean,
Draw
this,
2
this, this
cards.
requires a very, very insanely unbelievable setup where
Yeah,
you've gotten all
none
of
of
these
these things are
cards,
happening.
and then you're picking this as your epic. I'm giving this card
That's like a
1.
2. 1, sure.
Celestial Armor. Give your Summoning Stone immune.
Don't.
I'm gonna give this card a 1.
I thought that we weren't gonna have anything worse than the 1 for appeasement, but I was wrong.
Osiris. This card, if your epics are all bad, like the last 2 we just saw, you're picking this
Still don't.
as a
No.
1.5.
Still don't take this. Yeah, okay. If you see appeasement, celestial armor, Osiris, take Osiris. But like that's
But
it.
this card, unfortunately, if this was reduced at 1 for every friendly that's died this game, or in like the last turn or something, even this card would be almost playable. But as it is now,
Or
it's just not good enough.
just like every unit that died last turn, not even the friendly ones.
Yeah,
I'd be down with that.
every unit. That way you might be able to get like 4 mana off of it or something. But as the cost of it right now, it's too expensive. You're just never gonna play. He's not even ranged, right? If he was ranged, you could almost make some kind of argument. But at the way he is now, you have to have this card in your hand. So you have to like keep. If you want to keep this card around early, you have to keep it in your opener, which we're not doing.
Right. Which we're not. Yeah, no, we don't want to do that. Which makes him like terrible to start off.
Yeah.
You need to like draw him on your turn 1 by accident, which you don't want to be doing. But that's what needs to happen for him to be okay. Then you need to have 5 guys die for him to be worth it. You have to have 5 guys die in the first. Like, I guess if you play Bastet, then like he's
bad.
maybe okay.
No, he's bad. We're done. All right. Scarab's Blessing. Give a friendly unit Afterlife Resurrect. I actually don't hate this card. This card's actually pretty good. The thing about it is that there are some really good cards that you would love to have a second shot at. You know, if you were able to like, land this on and her, if you're able to land this on War Behemoth, on Neath, any of these cards just make it really nasty. That being said, they could silence it. They could decay it if you're really unlucky.
Heaven forbid you play it on a Hydra. You probably just win the game on the spot.
Yeah. So, this card is very good. That being said, you have to have something that's really good already in play, so you're probably already winning when you cast this card.
Yeah, but this is insurance.
I'm going to give it a 3. It's as good as your deck is, basically.
Yeah.
Thoth. This is the 5. There is no better epic in anywhere, I think, than Thoth at this point.
No. Old Soul?
No. Well, yeah, Old Soul would be, but I think this card's a solid 5. The ability to just end the game basically by itself. When you start healing things, if you get like 2 heals a turn off of this guy, you're just shooting your opponent's guys for 4. They can't live. And the fact that he's a 2/4 means he's ranged. Also means that he can literally attack a guy for 2 damage and then shoot it once for 4 damage as well. Which means nobody can come near your Summoning Stone. Nobody can like play in the 3 middle spaces. If you just leave him in the middle, you can reach the whole board with him. So there's just no real safe spawn points. Your opponent just can't play creatures that are like 2 or less health. I mean, 2 or less health at that point even. He comes down.
And if you ever happen to draft a Kepri with him, then he's really insane.
Yeah.
He starts killing like 10 health chieftains.
Yeah, it's just disgusting. This card is so good.
Moving on.
Annihilation. This card is another card that is just so good. Deals 4 damage to all enemies, and that includes your opponent's Summoning Stone. It's the only spell like that does this.
Dragon King?
Not really the same thing. That's a targeted spell.
Big AoE spell. Does damage. Yeah, whatever.
Like Blight doesn't. None of Bellona stuff does. This card is just insane. Just smashing everything for 4. Kills most units in this game. It'll allow you then to trade your units into their bigger ones if you need to. And on top of that, it can do 4 damage to your opponent's core, which is not too small to make a difference. It often can make a difference, especially if you've just been chipping away with range units the whole game. Like the 4 extra damage can actually put a lot of pressure on. I like this card. This card's
Yeah,
great.
it's a 5.
I think it's a 5. Anubis, like another 5. Deal 3 damage and root all enemies in target area. He's a 3/4 with ranged as well.
4.5.
He's a 4.5. I think
We take
he
Annihilation
might be
over
better than
Anubis,
Hydra
right?
even. He's so good. The 3 damage can also be done to the stone guys, so it's a way like you can just rack up damage on the stone too if your opponent has guys there.
Just it's important to keep in mind how or like where his Warcry applies. So where you cast Anubis, it goes in a straight line horizontally out from him, and then that horizontal
vertically.
line. Well, yeah, yes, but hold on. So most of the time, it goes horizontally out, and then it does 1 damage anywhere on that row, and then 1 above that row, or 1 above that space and 1 below that space. Or it does the 3 damage to those 3 spaces, if that made any sense. So if you have 3 guys in a column that you want to kill, and they all have 3 health, then you have to make sure you play Anubis on the same row as the middle guy.
Yeah. Those guys are really insane. That being said, I think Annihilation's probably better than him. Hydra is probably about even with him. Hydra's actually even better because Hydra
I
in
think
Raw
Hydra's better.
gets healed, so you're taking him just
Yeah,
under Annihilation and under Hydra, and that's about it.
learning Hydra. Yeah, take him over everything else.
Book of the Dead. This card's actually pretty solid. Getting back 3 gods, even in draft as 9 mana, is very good. And it's not just your gods. So even if your deck isn't heavily on gods, if you have a couple of them and your opponent has played 1 or 2, it's still fine. You're going to get some good value out of this. That being said, you can get gods that are very small back, and then 9 mana is not really great. But as far as like a pseudo draw spell where you're able to gain a lot of value very quickly, this card's hard to beat. He's worse. It's obviously worse than the other 2 legendaries we've seen, but it's a good one to take if there's not much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would take it over Mercenary, but probably nothing else, which means that you're almost never going to be drafting it, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because you always get 3 choices. I might take it over Isis, maybe. What are we rate Book of the Dead?
She's actually pretty good. A 3.
3. Okay.
Isis is a really great card. If you're ahead, you basically just win the game the second you cast this card. If you're behind, you're able to make trades and maybe get into a spot where you're then ahead. As a 4/4 range, it's very solid as well.
Yeah.
I like her better than Book of the Dead because Book of the Dead is so random, but not by much. I'd give her a 3 as well. Yeah. I believe that's it for Raw, guys. If you have any questions, definitely let us know. So definitely check us out live on Twitch and check out us on Twitter at NPC Naut.